But would anyone like to ask any questions or make any observations today?
So did the Pharisees did they continue through the centuries, or are they sort of lost to history, or maybe they would did the Orthodox Judaism of today, would they be?
I think it's a really good question, Colin. I'd have to. I wonder at what level they stopped being thought of as Pharisees. That's the question. Obviously, they kind of represented the popularist. The they were, if to kind of use modern church kind of things, they were a variety. They represented a variety of schools, which we might think of as the evangelical churches. So that they are very keen on they're very broad in their understanding of Scripture, in the sense of that they had more books than just the books of Moses, unlike the Sadducees who were restrictive and so on. And they would argue amongst themselves as to whose kind of sets counted the most and so on. But they were people who were trying. They didn't have the power of being in control of the system, but they had the kind of the power of popular discussion and popular argument. So I guess that there would be groups that you could see today that you would think of as within that sort of tradition, in Judaism. But there are of course various kind of layers and schools. Just as there were in Jesus' day, the Essenes were different from the Pharisees. So I think their influence remained, and it certainly remained into the Roman world after the destruction of Jerusalem. As I say, it was predominantly then the Hillelites who were different from the Shamites, who kind of who were dominant in Judea in Jesus' day. The Hillelites were there, but were less powerful. So I think they kind of evolved rather than totally got destroyed or totally disappeared. But yeah. Any other thoughts or questions? And I can't say I promise I know them. I've just noted. I've made my observations over the years and just thought, that's interesting to notice that. As I say, it's worth reading Psalm 118 and try a couple of different versions, because some make it more clear than others. Some of the connections. It's just choices that people have made in translation. Some of them makes it clearer than others do, but you can see several things that happen in Holy Week, from kind of referenced in that psalm. No other thoughts? Come on, Barbara, you normally got a question.
You've obviously satisfied everything I need to know.
Well, okay. Well, remarkably, then we might finish reasonably early.
Kristen, when they talk about the farmer, the landowner coming back, would that also be translated as the end of time when?
I think it's not necessarily. I think it's a parable, but we can read and understand those things, and so that becomes something that is unpacked in the future, but wouldn't necessarily be something that immediately the hearers of Jesus are looking for days of visitation from the Lord because they've had them in the past. They're not necessarily looking for the ultimate one, but they're looking for a kind of a sense of, and the Messiah would represent that when he's coming back. So there is a kind of a degree to which the idea of coming back has a prophetic meaning to his hearers, but it's probably slightly different to what it would be to the kind of the modern church, which is we see as the second coming of Jesus, whereas they would see it as the first coming of the Messiah. But that would be the return of God. So he was with them in the days when he used to be in the tabernacle, for instance, where his presence was in their midst. That's one of the things they were looking for, but it's not quite the same as what the modern church is looking for. Okay. Similar, same in type, but difference in detail. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
just a question about when Jesus says about about it being given, the kingdom being given. Did you translate that as another nation, to a nation?
Or I did it as peoples.
Peoples, yeah.
Yeah, so the word that we translate as nations in the New Testament is ethnos, from which we get the word ethnicities, because the concept of the modern concept of a nation is not the same as the ancient concept of a nation. So the United Kingdom wouldn't be a nation; it would be a territory with lots of nations in it. Because we have people with different kind of cultural and ethnic groups all living on the same space. And so they would be ministers as a region or as a territory, but the nations were the groups of people. So I just figured the peoples was a better way of understanding. It's whoever the individuals are who are responding, who are now receiving the kingdom, rather than it being, which you could see. It's a good question, Barbara. Probably an argument has been made by the Catholic Church in the past that their special status, Vatican State in Rome, they are the centre of a more of a kind of a national identity that you could see. But I think that's not the flow of that wouldn't really be the best understanding of the word ethnos in the.
No,
So when
no,
Jesus
I was sort of just wondering if there was some sort of reference to the Gentiles, but I don't think so. If it's
it sort of is in that they were referred to as the nations. They were so if a Jewish person referred to the nations, the point is they were out there and they weren't Jewish. So it's kind of but there is a reference in the sense of it saying anybody who's from any nation, who's now one of those people who's going through who's receiving this. They're all included. So yeah,
the vineyard bit, the vineyard. Would the hearers have understood that as sort of relating to Israel?
yes, yeah. There's various times where God talks about about Israel as a kind of things like, and he talks about both. I think he there's a lot of kind of pastoral imagery that God uses, but he often is there as part of the description of his people. It's kind of those he's taking care of, those he's producing fruit from, those he's tending over. So it's a very kind of clear to anyone listening that it's a reference to those who are a bit like when Jesus talks about the unfaithful shepherds who are just hirelings and so on. That those images are there in the Old Testament. They're not kind of explicitly this always relates to this, but you find them used there. And so people would recognise them when they're being used as being references in those ways. Anything else? Anything else? No? Okay. Well, it's always, as always, it's really nice to have had folks, and hopefully, oh, hang on, let's go back. Here we go, look. I've got my thanks for watching. I never get onto this slide. It's always there, and I regularly just stop with the verses. Thanks for watching. There we go. Good. So just trying to think if there's anything else we ought to do or say. Well, we've got a couple of weeks off now, so we will be doing actual Easter a couple of weeks after Easter, but that's not too bad. So it's quite nice that we've actually split Jesus's last week across just before and just after Easter. So good, and of course, hopefully, people have signed up, and you can get the kind of the daily bits on the which matches all of the Gospels, not just Matthew, together for the story of Jesus's last week. So hopefully, we'll engage with you then. Otherwise, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. So anything else, in case anyone else wants to say anything else? No. People are surprisingly silent today.
Very interesting. Thanks, Kristen.
Great, thank you. Thanks for saying that. I'm glad you said it. Neil, because now you've said it, your face will pop up on the question and answer bit. So it proves there was an extra person here. Yeah. Okay. Bless you guys.
That's it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.